Welcome to The Garden Gate, a podcast where we talk to professionals across many fields who work directly and indirectly with plants and our natural world.
We are students at American University in Washington, D.C., and interns at Smithsonian Gardens. We have created this project with the hopes of inspiring a new generation to make sustainable and meaningful change in our world.
I'm Kira Burba.
And I am Caroline MacDonald. And this week we're talking to Sydney Felder about plants and college life. Sydney is a student at American University who's working to create change with the school's community garden.
Hi, Sydney.
Hi, it's good to see you guys.
Good to see you too. I think that you are our youngest guest, which is super exciting.
That is exciting. Oh my gosh.
I think you'll be able to relate to our listeners a lot, and they'll be able to relate to you.
Excellent.
You're definitely the closest that we have to what we're doing since we go to the same school and we have a lot of the same goals in life. So it would be interesting to talk to you.
Most definitely.
To start, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your journey to AU?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm from Portland, Oregon, and somehow I wound up in DC. It was a bit of a funny process, but I'm so happy to be here now. And while I was in Portland growing up, I attended a school through elementary and middle school that was environmentally based. It was just a public school, but somehow I wound up at a really environmentally focused school. And at that school, they really promoted lots of ideas about sustainability, global stewardship, and basically service towards your community in an ecologically focused way. And this definitely planted a seed in me of wanting to carry those values forward and throughout my life. I also come from a background of farmers. I'm a fourth generation prune farmer. My mom's side of the family lives in Northern California, and they've had the prune farm for a very long time. So as a kid, we would do family road trips down, and it was so fun to be able to visit the farm, see all the operations, play on the tractors and all that stuff. So this kind of thing has been kind of brewing in me for a while. And throughout quarantine, I was reflecting back on this and thinking about ways I might be able to invest that energy towards, something really good. And gardening came to the forefront of my mind. And living in DC for a few years, I was aware that throughout Rock Creek Park, there were a few places where people could rent out plots of land and, be able to cultivate that. So that was something that I really was interested in exploring. But after doing a little bit of research, you have to pay for those plots, and there's a pretty long wait list, which is understandable. I also didn't feel that I was really equipped to start a brand new garden on my own with pretty low experience and no real resources towards gardening. So my next thought was, okay, where can I get involved? And the university seemed like the best place to explore that. So I did some digging, tried to get in touch with a few people, but eventually I ended up going to the garden itself, and I left a note on the gate with my phone number and my email on it. And thankfully somebody found it and reached out to me. And I started going to the community garden. I think it was either late May or early June. And it's been a pretty wild ride ever since.
That's so cool. I didn't know that's how you found the garden.
It's a pretty funny story. It's very coincidental. I just am so thrilled that it worked out.
Oh, that's so cool.
And prune farming is so interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, that must have been such an interesting upbringing, and obviously it's influenced you a lot in your hobbies.
Most definitely.
What's your major at AU?
I'm an international studies major, and in that my focus is environmental sustainability and global health. So yeah, that has definitely been an influence. I'm very interested in agriculture policy and kind of observing those systems. Through having that experience, it's definitely formed a really unique viewpoint to observe those issues through.
Definitely.
I'm really curious. Did you always feel really drawn to exploring those topics in college, or was your upbringing something you were later able to appreciate after coming to AU and starting your studies?
So having that experience of being able to drive down from Portland to California and, spending a few days on the farm was really formative. I wasn't really specifically drawn towards the field exactly as I grew up. I got involved in the political sphere in high school, and that was really something that I was super fascinated with, which is one of the reasons I was drawn to DC. And that was something that I was really exploring for a while until I wound up in the Environmental Sustainability Global Health Gateway class. And, this kind of spark went off that, okay, obviously, of course, policy, politics, and agriculture, sustainability, and global health are so tightly tied together, almost inescapably. So that was definitely kind of an aha moment and something that I'm really excited to continue exploring.
Thank you for sharing.
That's so
really cool. How people grow up can so strongly influence what they're interested in. Either like they stay interested in what they were surrounded by or they veer away from that. So it's really cool to hear your story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think like in my middle school, elementary school specifically, I had that experience. One of the things that we did, which I am so grateful for looking back on, but dreaded when I was in it, is we would do weekly field studies. And so we would take our big old class and hop on a public bus and just go off to some spot. And it's great in Oregon. There's so many like parks and natural spaces throughout and surrounding the city. So it was very easy to access places. And we would do things like invasive species cleanup. We would test and study water and, pH of water, animals within the water, invertebrate in the water. And we would do a lot of, sit and observation work. And as a kid, I was like always wanting to jump and run around. So I like hated sitting and just kind of watching things. But as I get older, it's something that I really love to implement in my even day to day. And it's something that I've carried into the gardening team that I'm leading right now. Every time we meet together, we allocate 5 to 10 minutes for silent sit spot time where you can sit and, check out what changed since the last time you were in the garden and, engage your senses, touch the plants around you and, feel the soil under your hands. And I think it's an incredible aspect of gardening and being connected to the land in general.
That's so nicely said. Thank you. Why was joining or becoming part of an environmentally focused career important to you?
I think one of the things that really drew me towards it was, of course, my background and my experience growing up, but also it is, something that I feel needs a lot of attention, needs a lot of care, and it can be really difficult to continue to study this topic without being drawn to take action. And right now, throughout this pandemic, it's been very difficult to find ways in which we can take constructive action. The experience in the garden has been extremely constructive and wonderful for forming this passion of mine, and it's a small scale thing that I can use as a model to see, other places where I can take this action.
That's great because I think that like the tricky thing when figuring out what you want to study or like what you want your career in is like, okay, well, what am I passionate about? I feel like a lot of people start there. But like, I think the question people have is, how do I take this further? Like, how do I take action? How do I make a bigger difference?
Yeah, like moving forward, I think obviously having hobbies in college is so important into figuring out who you are. What you're doing with Leading by Learning is like creating something that's more than that and can help foster people's interest in careers, or even if it doesn't become their career, just like something that they do on the side that is more than just gardening, which I think is really amazing.
Absolutely. I think that it's difficult, I think, in a university setting to be really stuck on this idea of, if I'm doing this thing, this is like this hobby or this side project or whatever, this is something that I need to take to the next level and like really explode with. But I think it's really important to just, branch out as much as you can and try to, get involved with stuff that, even barely piques your interest, because there's so much mystery out there to what passion is. And it's so much of it is just to go out and, experience. And that's something that I've taken away from gardening and other little projects that I've done on the side. I've had many a project that I've gave up on before finding this.
I completely agree. I just feel like AU is such a diverse community, and passion is such a funny thing that like you never know how you're going to feel about something until you actually go out and do it. Like I know so many people that probably don't really like being outside, but could probably find something they love about the community garden in some other aspect.
Absolutely. And I think one of the really cool things about the garden is that there's so many layers to it. If you are a person that, doesn't really feel like it's surface level, something that is your perfect fit, there's so many different avenues to gardening. One of which is, we have an amazing student body that is so smart. An important part of gardening is this research, this understanding of seeds and the stories that are behind them, and the uses that they've had throughout history, and the important, significant agrarian history and knowledge that the indigenous people whose land that we're occupying have had, and have had for centuries before us. And I think this is a principle of learning by leading. Using your personal skills and your personal strengths to uplift a group and uplift your community is so essential.
Definitely. And I feel like it's just like a special knack that a lot of AU students have, is to take something that they love as a hobby and turn it into something more. It's just so funny. I feel like it happens with everyone I know.
Smart kids.
Definitely.
And then like you start to get other people involved, and then it becomes this huge like community taking collective action towards what they care about, and I just love that. It's so important.
It's been really fantastic and significant to be bringing together these people. My heart lights up every time I get a DM on our Instagram page, and it just makes me so fulfilled and joyful that this thing that I'm doing, and this thing that my community is doing is gaining attention and gaining traction, and bringing new folks in and showing them all the beds, and describing what kind of plants we have in each bed, and this is a weed, but this weed is edible. What do we define as truly being a weed, and can we shift our focus away from this traditional like colonial style of gardening, of where production is maximized and weeds don't have a place. It's just been a fantastic exploration of that. And it's so funny to be working in a group again after all this isolation this year. Of course, we're very safe. We keep the groups very small. We wear masks and we're outside and distanced. So it's a very safe process. But to be addressing a group after, only being on Zoom for the past year is so surreal. And it's just, it's a fantastic experience to go out there and, be able to have a conversation with one person, then go over to have a conversation with another person and not have to go into a breakout room or anything. It's a real treat.
Right. Like I feel like gardening is like the perfect COVID activity too. Like you guys can all be doing your own thing, but you're within the garden with each other, chatting and stuff like that. Like it feels like you can be together safely.
Definitely.
And especially in this year, we're so connected to our technology and being indoors. Like, what a beautiful thing to get outside and connect with real humans in real life and like hear their voice, not through audio on technology, and also be able to like touch the earth. Like, so grounding. So, how would you say that your experience with the community garden at American University with the group of students you're working with, how has this experience influenced where you see yourself going in the next couple years? Has it changed your trajectory at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think my trajectory has been changed every 3 months or so since I started at university. But this has definitely been a big shift towards something I see myself pursuing for quite a while. I recently started working with a USDA grant organization called Farmers and Ranchers Stress Assistance Network, which works to provide training for extensions from land-grant universities to help farmers with the stress that they're facing due to climate change, COVID stress, governmental stress. Suicide rates in farming and ranching is at its highest, with very low resources to assist that. So I'm thrilled to be involved with this project. I think the work that they are doing is so significant and so important, and it's tying together a few things that I'm very passionate about.
How does the experience of having an internship help you reach your career goals?
I just started it like a week and a half ago, so I don't know if I'll be able to answer that question, but I would love to in a month.
That's so exciting, though. It sounds like an amazing internship.
Congratulations.
How did you hear about it?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. So I heard about this through my wonderful mentor, Dr. Jerry Hush, who was the person who really led me through my initiation to gardening. Dr. Hush and I worked really closely throughout the summer and early fall, doing, collective action, researching the stuff we were really interested in researching, planting together, harvesting together. And at one point, we were workshopping a cookbook that's still in the process of being created. We were making videos together, a lot of fun work. She had actually gained a new position in Delaware, so she moved there in, I believe, November. And her and I have been in contact since. And I, reached out to her recently to hear about the work she's doing, and she's just so excited to, bring me on board and continue this relationship.
That's amazing. And especially because you met Jerry through the community garden, and that seems like such a small, easy thing, but it led to you getting an internship at the USDA, which is definitely a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I met her through a note that I left on the garden fence. So.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more to the importance that you might feel about having a mentor while going through college and trying to figure out what career you want to join?
So I worked with Dr. Hush over the summer and considered her primarily as a close friend. But on reflection of our relationship in the garden, I have found her to become a strong mentor for me. She was able to provide me a lot of guidance about the importance of gardening beyond planting and beyond cultivating food. We talk a lot about the stories that exist beyond plants. Right now I'm in the office and I'm sitting right next to a loofah. It's a sponge that's grown on a vine, and it's so crazy to see that in person. Dr. Hush is an extremely intelligent person. She's done incredible work and incredible research, and just to bounce ideas off of her and to talk through the classes that I was taking, and being able to call to her if I am, doubting my leadership abilities for this garden, and to get that advice and get that guidance is so valuable. And I'm just so thankful to have that relationship with her, for sure.
That's amazing. Mentors I have found in my life are so important to just not only help me figure out what I want to do, but just give me that encouragement to keep going when things get hard and I feel like everything's failing and nothing has worked. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore, but it's just wonderful to have them there and reassure me that they went through that too and that it's going to be okay and to keep going.
Absolutely. And it's great. Jerry and I have really honest conversations about both of our lives, and we really work to help support each other, and it's been wonderful to have that mutual respect and relationship with a mentor that way.
Definitely. So we've talked a lot about where you are now and where you're going in the future, but is there anything, looking back to when you were in high school, deciding where to go to college, didn't really know what you wanted to do yet, is there anything that you would tell yourself or give yourself advice?
I can't really think of anything, to be honest. I think that so many coincidences happened to me. It's very funny. But I guess I would say that the value of work is very real. Putting your energy and your focus towards something you're really drawn to, even if it's not necessarily the same perceived caliber as peers. I was never a math person, and so when I do find something that really calls my attention, I definitely doubt is this worth putting energy towards? This is not traditionally something that people explore in the academic field, so am I doing less if I invest myself in this. And, to reassure my younger self, I would say, no, that work you're doing is impactful and important. And it leads to opportunities. It leads to doors opening where you wouldn't really expect them to, that kind of help everything align.
That's great. And I love that you said you really wouldn't change anything just because you're so happy with where you are. And not a lot of people can say that. And I know that we're young, but it's really just nice to hear.
Yeah, I definitely do think that there are so many lessons in those moments of perceived failure or, perceived misalignment with the final goal. I don't really adhere to an idea of a final point in my career where it's like, when I get here, this is going to be perfect, everything's going to work out. I definitely have a more gentle approach to myself, because I think that having that mindset makes me be really hard on myself and put a lot of pressure on myself to do, accomplish a goal that I don't even have fully actualized in my own mind. So taking things as they come has been something that's been really important for me, and I think that to go back and change any of that would be a disservice to my current self, because even through the bad moments, there's something that I learned. And of course, I understand that that's a very privileged thing to say in many cases, but that has been my truth that I have experienced in my life.
And I think that's just going to be so encouraging for people younger than us to hear, that just because it seems like things aren't going well, it's going to propel you to where you want to be eventually.
Yeah, it's really funny. I mean, my younger brother right now is in his first year of university in California, and he's having that classic freshman experience where it's really hard to find your footing, especially during COVID. I mean, I sympathize for him so much, but during my freshman year particularly, there were moments where I felt very lost and very, I was one among many that, and especially at a school like AU where there's so many smart kids, I just felt a little bit out of my own. But I think that experience of being uncomfortable and having that year of learning, it was so impactful for my journey.
If you could give university students or high school students even advice on how they can make sustainable change in their communities and environment, do you have any advice for them?
One key aspect of sustainability that I've found in my experience is the idea of longevity, to continue the work that others have created and find your way to elevate that in the way that works best for you. The American University Community Garden has these fantastic roots, and I've spent a lot of time talking to people and hearing about their history within American University's garden specifically. And one of the continual barriers that has come up in our conversations is that it's really difficult to make that jump once the majority of the folks involved are seniors or leaving the university for whatever reason, to continue that energy and that passion behind the project to the next quote-unquote generation of students coming in. So my advice for sustainable action is to find your place in projects that are pre-existing, find ways that you can strengthen them and lengthen them, and that continuation of past work will create the most foundational change, because you already have that base that you're working from. You don't have to start brand new, and you can really uplift important projects that are already occurring.
That's really well said.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sydney. It was so great to talk to you today.
You too. This was a wonderful opportunity. Thank you guys so much for having me on today.
I'll definitely be stopping by the community garden soon to check out all your work.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
The Garden Gate was created by Kira Burba and Caroline McDonald as part of the Learning by Leading initiative with the Smithsonian Gardens. This team includes Emily Warshaw as the Education Specialist, Yenna Yu as the Marketing Specialist, Nicolette Kelly as the Recording Assistant, and Megan Hasty as the Audio Engineer. The music is by Royalty Free Music on SoundCloud. Special thanks to Cynthia Brown and Paula Healy. Learn more by visiting gardens.si.edu. Thanks for listening.